Let's talk today about basic stuff. How do you even start? Let's add an account first. Let's give this account a name. We call it simply bank account. For initial balance, we put 3000. It is a debit bank account, so we move this toggle to green. We are back on main accounts view. Now, you can see this letter sign that shows D for debit on debit account row. Now, let's create a credit account. We call it credit card and put 200 for initial balance. We leave credit debit toggle as is, since credit is the default option. Once again, we can see letter C for credit and D for debit account in the main accounts view. Now we go to categories view. At the top of the screen, we can see 3000 out of 3000. First is our current balance that we have at our bank account. And second is money, which we have to categorize into budget categories. On the left of the number, we read not budgeted, which indicates that we didn't put this money to categories. So, let's create a category now. At the bottom of the screen, we tap plus button. It opens a modal for category creation. In first field, we put name of category. Let's start with mortgage. And we put 2,500 as our budget. Is this a recurring expense? Yes, it is. How much should we plan for a month? In this case, it is the same number, 2,500. And in total, this month we want 2,500 to put in this category. In other cases, we might want to put partial amount from every income transaction. For example, if we are paid bi-weekly, something like 1,000 every time we get money until we accumulate 2,500 in this period. Also, here we can choose length of the period for which this category is created. We can choose 1, 2 or more weeks, months, days. We can also add a note, but in this case we don't need any. Let's save this category. Now, look at the top message. It says that we still have 500 not budgeted. We'll put this money to other categories. Let's create category for car or other automobile expenses such as parts or oil change and call this category auto. We put there 100. It is not recurring expense, more of a possible expense at any time. Next category will be kids, where we put 200. It might be a bit too general. Let's call this category kids kindergarten. And now it makes sense to plan this category as a recurring expense, where the goal is the same in this case as well, and we save it. Let's create yet another category, but this time it will need plan for recurring expense with different goal. We will call it debt, such as student loan or credit union loan. It doesn't matter, we make it general for this example. So, let's assume that we are paid bi-weekly. From every salary, we want to put 100. So recurring is 100, but plan for a month is to pay 200. To remember that, you can put a note for yourself. 100 per salary and 200 per month. Usually, if you use this system often enough, you don't need a note. Let's save it. Now, under the budget amount, you can see numbers in small letters on some of the categories. That is the goal amount. For example, under debt category, you see 200 per 1 month. This is the goal, while the budget is 100. So, it means that we still need to put 100 more to get to the goal of this month budget for this category. In practical terms, when you want to budget for a category, we open it by tapping on its name. We look at the plan section. Here we see first field having 100. It is recurring amount per salary or other recurring income. In the second field, we see 200. This is the goal for this period, which is 1 month. So, every time I get salary, I look at the first field in the plan section and just put that amount for the budget, the main field above. Okay, Let's finish this with yet another category. This time it is grocery. We put there 100 without anything in plan section, since groceries are not stable recurring expense. And now we see that all 3000 is in the budget. Now let's go to accounts and let's add new transaction. It will be our salary. Let's say it is 3000. We switch plus minus toggle to green plus. When it is minus, money go out of your account. When it is plus, money go into your account. You don't need a category for income, but usually I add a description category for documentation. We tap categories, and then down the screen we tap Not Tracked button. It opens a field to type in. We put name income as a category and tap the checkmark button to save it. It brings us back to transaction. We tap Save button and it closes the model. So, let's say this is our second salary during this bi-weekly salary period. We go back to categories and see the same number we saw before, 3000. We will deal with it in a moment. But first, let's open debt category. Remember that according to our plan, we have to put 200, but so far we have only 100 in our budget. And how much should we put every salary? We see this number in first field of the plan section. It is 100. So we add 100 to existing 100 to get 200. Let's save it. And now we can see on the debt category row that we have 200, which equals the planned amount for this month. Our job is done here. We still have 2,900 not budgeted. Let's not overthink it too much for this example and just dump all this money in random category. Though we don't advise you to use such a category. Your money should go to more detailed categories. However, initially it is hard to know your exact expenses. You can create categories as you go and sort it out when expenses come. Now let's pay our mortgage. Go back to accounts. Let's pay it from our bank account. Tap plus button to open new transaction model. In the first field, we put name of the receiving party. Let's call them something like Mortgage Solutions. So, how much should I pay? Let's look at the relevant category. 2,500. Nice. Let's select this category and put 2,500 in the amount field. Is it a recurring expense? Yes, it is. Is it a big expense? Technically, yes, though I usually don't select big and recurring tags for the same transaction, because big transactions are unusual expenses that we want to notice, so we can see why our current total amount of expenses is bigger than expenses for previous periods. For example, I look at this month and see that I spent, say, 4,000 instead of usual 3,000. I want to know why. So I look at the big expenses for this month and see that I bought a TV or something like that. Anyway, let's save it. You now can see a new transaction row with 2,500 for mortgage category. Now let's go back to categories. Look at the mortgage category and we can see grayed out zeros in the rest column. That means we don't have any more money to spend on this category. We can tap those numbers in rest column and see all transactions associated with category row. This is how much money is left in the category. How it will look when there is still money. Let's go back to accounts, and this time we create a transaction in our credit card account. Let's open new transaction. Say we bought some apples, pears and a pie for $50. We categorize it as grocery. Now, let's get back to categories view. Look at groceries. Okay, we still have $50 to spend. And if we decide to buy a chocolate bar for another $5, put it in grocery, then check what is left in that category, we can see that now we have $45 left in grocery category. Let's see what happens when we overspend on a category. For example, our car is broken and we want to fix it. That will cost us $500. Let's put it into category auto. Remember that in that category we have just $100, but we are paying $500. What will happen when we save this transaction? You can see in the bottom of the screen a yellow message that says minus 400 is over in auto. We can click that message to minimize it. Let's go to categories view. Now, if we look in category row auto in rest column, we can see number minus 400 marked in red, indicating how much we have overspent. Okay, let's fix it. How? There's an option to recategorize our budget, taking money from other category and putting it in the one we want to cover. How much do we need? We need 400. That's what it says at the top of recategorization view. So, we type in 400. Where do we have money that we can use? In this case, it's random category. Tap it and 400 will go from random to auto category. Save it. So, now we see zeros in the rest column for auto, which is correct. We budgeted 500 and spent those 500, so nothing is left. Couple more things. In account view, if we tap on the top right corner where the balance number is, we see summary view that shows us not only balance but also expenses, initial balance, and other helpful data. You can also see it by tapping on paper zoom icon in the bottom menu bar. If we go to main accounts view, looking at the top right corner, we see number that shows us difference between income transactions and expenses. Notice it doesn't take into account the initial balances. So if you got salary, that number minus whatever you spent will be the number you see there. Let's tap it. We now see another summary view that shows us data from all accounts. The total net is the number that we tapped to open this view. We see that we have 3,000 as income, meaning your income transactions in current period. Again, remember it is not including the initial balances. And we see 3,055 as expense. So the difference between income and expense is minus 55. So this number doesn't mean that we spend more money than we have. That ideally should never happen if we use MoneyBudger or any budgeting system. Instead, this number is kind of psychological nudge, an encouragement to try to spend less once you see that you already spent more than your income for this period. So in this period, you should make more and spend less, which is possible if we stay in positive total net number. Also, we see total bigs, which is sum of big expenses from all accounts. In this case, we didn't spend any money on a big expense, but it could be something like TV or other unexpected expense that is out of usual spending. We see total recurring in transactions. In this case, it coincides with our mortgage payment that we pay every month, and total recurring in categories, which is number that shows us our expected recurring expenses. If our categories and transactions recurring numbers don't match in the end of a period, which is usually a month, we should look why and adjust recurring categories accordingly. That's it for now. Thank you for watching and have a nice budgeting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.